It's a little weird, the order of writing that we've been using thus far. And if you feel confused or, well, you're probably doing it right because part of our practice in these first few weeks is to sort of be building an essay from the inside out. And today, this week, finally, we get to put all those pieces together. So you will notice that we've started in the middle of a story. We've started with the concrete expression of a tale. And that's a good place to start every time you're writing an essay at the college level. We want to start with our experience. We want to start with our data. We want to start with the specific things that we know. So we started in the middle. Middles sometimes have natural parts, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. Middles sometimes have organizations that seem sensible, this before this, and then this. So then what we did is we went from this concrete expression and we used that lovely adjective noun paragraph exercise to generate an idea that grew out of that story. So we used adjective noun paragraph to come up with a specific idea word that we now could understand the story as an illustration of that word. And we listed a whole bunch of describing words, we turned them into nouns, we circled the nouns that we liked, and we chose one noun as the abstract idea that we're now going to attach. We have grown it out of the middle of the story, and we're now going to use the story to illustrate, to explore, or to investigate that idea. So, for example, I had the story of my father in the Helsinki airport looking at all those guys. How did those guys know what language to address? How did those those porters and those shoe shiners know to address this guy in German, this guy in Finnish, this guy in English? Well, and I used that story. I decided of all the things that I thought that story was about, I thought the curiosity. My father was curious in that story. That was the abstract idea word that I was going to now think of in terms of this story. So we've started with concrete middle. We have moved to idea writing. So this week our challenge is how on earth are we going to end our essay? I'm looking around for my pen. And of course, what we want to do with an ending is we want the ending to come back and show what the middle story has taught us about that beginning. So today, this week, your writing this week is designed to help you do that. How do we move to a substantial, thoughtful, college level ending of an essay? And I'm going to suggest a kind of an in-between step that's really useful. So I want you to read your beginning, I want you to reread your middle, and then what I want you to do on some scrap paper or a screen is I want you to write for 5 minutes or so observations. And these observations are a way for you to sort of think away from your essay. What has this story taught me about this idea? I notice, for example, I could write, here's a bunch of observations I could write. I notice that my dad is not at work. I notice that curiosity is a daily thing. It's not really a professional thing. It's a daily. I notice that curiosity is upbeat and positive and that it is, in fact, it's cheery. I notice that what else can I notice about how this story teaches me about the idea? So after I've done 3 or 4 or 5 of those sentences, again, trying to think, what's the teaching? What's the moral of the story about the idea? After I've done that, I can use rereading as a really good critical thinking technique again. And I'm going to reread my beginning, reread my middle, reread my observations. And now, boom, now that I've done that, I am primed. I am primed to write this, boom, this wonderful ending of my essay. And the closest instruction I have for a substantial ending is the Fable Exercise. What's the moral of the story about the idea? So the trick with these endings is to say, it's often very good to start the ending with the word. Take your very first word and let it be the first sentence. Curiosity happens everywhere. You never know how many people, how curiosity is going to serve you as a resource. My father, despite his learnedness, despite his scholarship, despite all the books he's read and all the degrees he's read, he still, day to day, in every place, in every space, had this curious, active mind, scanning the world for news, scanning the world for humor, for understanding. Curiosity is a sort of a street smarts that shows up in all kinds of places. So notice that in that little riff, my little improvised ending, I'm really working hard to keep my writing focused not on the characters of the story, not on the events of the story, but on the learning about the idea. College level essays really use these 2 poles of writing, concrete information and abstract idea. And what we're learning this week, what we've actually been learning over the last few weeks of the writing, is how to switch back and forth between those 2 different kinds of thinking. I think concrete story writing sort of comes natural. Our whole world is organized about, did you hear what happened at the mall last week? Can I tell you the one about what Raul did at the bar? Although we don't go to bars anymore, it's COVID. But nevertheless, I think our lives are organized in terms of detailed story writing. The challenge of college work is sort of to organize this thinking so that we can switch and say, this idea, the moral of this teaching, the learning is here too. And that's what we're practicing with these inside out essays. So with that in mind, I can instruct till the cows come home, but it doesn't mean anything until we actually do it. So here's your chance to sort of slow down and attempt this with your essay number 4 and your essay number 5. You've now had a story, you now have these abstract idea word beginnings, and now you have the chance to write some observations towards writing an ending. And you get to try that with your essay 4, your first family story, and you get to try it with your essay number 5, your second. This is a kind of rewriting, a kind of doing it over so we get a feel for how these different parts work. In your comments this week, I will try early on in the week to get some observations about your beginning middle parts that you sent me already. And those observations will be to help you move towards endings, move towards. So it's tricky. This is hard. This is hard, challenging, new kinds of thinking, especially breaking the essay's parts down into the 3 different pieces. But it's a really good way to slow us down so that we can focus on the work of each. I can't wait to see how you end these essays. I'll be looking forward to them. Have a blast.